Philadelphia Eagles off a loss will be in a surly mood. This is something I've given a lot of thought, and I talked about it for about a minute, 90 seconds yesterday at the end of the show. There's a lot of criticism from people on the internet that don't like the fact that, like, Caleb Williams is completing like 59.5% of his throws. And I've always said, like, the line is 62.5 minimum. So this year, you can look at some of these stats on a passer rating. Its completion percentage is very low. Here's some other numbers. 4-0 in November, 8 touchdowns, no picks. And the Bears are the only team in the NFL to average 30 points a game and 400 total yards in November. I like those numbers. But here's the thing, what's happening, and this is why I give this so much thought. And this is my favorite part about sports, the constant changes. I talked about this the other day, that college basketball was unwatchable for 20 years. And then about 3 years ago with the NIL and a lot of players staying for one more year that would be second-round picks and all that NIL money buying Europe's, some of their best 20 players, college basketball the last 2 years, excellent. You go, the draft this year, the top 3 or 4 players are all-stars, all of them. So, and here's the thing, what's happening with the NFL is that mobility is no longer a luxury. It's a requirement. Because right now, the young offensive coaches are using motion double what they did 10 years ago. There's just more smart, clever offensive coaches. And I'm not saying you can run your way to a Super Bowl at quarterback. Lamar Jackson's just struggled to win games in the playoffs. But it's like how I view college. I would recommend sending your kids to college, but the only thing in 2025 guaranteed about sending your kids to college, they'll come out of it with massive college debt. AI, the phone, Google, there is so much information out there now that you don't have to sit through a college lecture and pay $74,000 a year to attain. I still think it's the place to go.
What college are you sending your kid to?
But it's not the be-all, end-all. And that's how I look about Caleb's completion percentage. Yeah, I'd like him. Right now, he's like 59.5. I'd like him to get up to 61.5. But do you know the last 3 quarterbacks to lead the NFL in completion percentage? Last 3 years, 0 playoff wins.
Okay. This is, first off, Colin's reference of colleges are like some sort of like elite. Like, don't get me wrong, college is expensive. I got, I got the debt to prove it. He's talking about some out-of-state elite private business colleges or something. But now Colin is saying that he doesn't really care about Caleb's accuracy, but he kept saying that that's like a problem, and then he said it's not fixable. That's what he said. His accuracy issues aren't fixable. And I said, well, I think they are. I was like, why is that? Why are they not fixable? Of course they are, especially if it's mechanics, etc., etc. And then I referenced Daniel Jones, Josh Allen, and I was like, they could be fixable. Like, of course. Can you go from a wildly inaccurate quarterback to being the most accurate quarterback in the NFL? Not necessarily. But yeah, it should be said, because I know there's been lots of drops and whatnot. It should still be said that even when you account for that, when you look at adjusted completion percentage, he's still been really low with adjusted completion percentage. He is, where is he at? He's 37th. Okay, so he's a percent higher than J.J. McCarthy. Injured Carson Wentz, Tyler Shuck, and Jake Browning. So he has been inaccurate. Nobody can deny that. You can't say, oh, with the drops and this or that, and he's been inaccurate. People have said, and I've said this as well, that Patrick Mahomes, this has not been a super accurate year for him. Watched all his games. You've seen a lot of missed throws from Patrick. And he's at 74%. Okay, 74. Caleb Williams is 65.3. So, that does matter. Backup quarterback M. Mac Jones 71%. Josh Allen 72.3. Stafford 72.7. So like do you have to get up to like 84% like Brock Purdy, or 83.9% from Jacoby Brissett? No, but you do need to be more accurate. And that is why I said before that this offense, as good as it's been and as successful as Caleb has been, this is why I said that, like, they're leaving points on the board. Like they're leaving points on the table. They're leaving from my viewpoint, and this has changed a little bit, but at least earlier on in the season, uh, I'm watching those games and I'm like, you're leaving like at least a touchdown out there. Like this team could be averaging, 35 plus points per game, like bona fide, like true. Like not like, oh yeah, you got some extra points at the end of the game, blah. Like no, I mean like hanging, touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. Things like we've seen the Chiefs do, like we've seen the Lions do with none other than Ben Johnson. Like that's what it is. And that's why I said before, and this is an older take, weeks ago, things have morphed a little bit. But it was just like the limiting factor is Caleb Williams. But again, to be very clear, it's not saying that Caleb is limiting this team in a way where you're like, see, that's why Caleb is bad. Like, that's not what I'm saying. Like, what I was saying before is that it makes sense that Caleb can be a limiting factor because he's a second-year quarterback in his first year with Ben Johnson. So, like, I expect him to be a limiting factor, but it's not meant to be, like, twisted in a way where it's like you're saying that he's not good enough and that he's holding this team back in the traditional sense. It's no, but that this team can reach this next level, but it is dependent on Caleb taking that step forward. But like now Colin's just saying, it doesn't matter. And it was just like, I don't know. I don't know when I'm going to be able to accept Colin's Chicago Bears take and Caleb Williams take. I think I'm going to continue, like, I think I said this earlier, like I'll continue with this feeling, this season, because it's just too recent. And then if he continues up with it next season or into the summer, then I'll let it go. But I just can't let it go right now. I'm just being honest. I just can't. I just can't. I really can't. Because that was part of it. Like part of his argument of why Caleb is not the guy and why it's not going to work with Ben Johnson was completion percentage. And now he's just saying, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. I see a lot of people out there complaining about the completion percentage. You were one of them. And some people watch the show and then they say, hey, this is a problem. And because you're telling them it's a problem, and then they're continuing with that logic. It's a pet peeve of mine. I'm pretty dialed in the health and in the health and fitness community. This is what this makes me think of. There's this, they used to believe that as soon as you were done working out that you wanted to slam a protein shake, that you had this anabolic window and that you wanted to eat protein and carbs and you wanted to get it all in like within like a half hour to an hour of working out. And there's still people that believe that. And that turns out to not be the case. Like the joke now is like, it's not a window, it's more like a barn door. It's just like as long as you eat within reason, doesn't have to be a protein shake, doesn't have to be anything specific. It's just like, yeah, just as long as you eat like 25, 30 grams of protein within like 5 hours of your workout, like you're pretty good, you're fine. Like there's no difference between getting jacked and not, right? Like it's just, and even then, even if you eat all your protein in the beginning of the day and at night and you work out smack dab in the middle, like is it technically optimal? Probably not. But is it the difference again between like gaining strength and gaining muscle and being productive and changing your body? Like no. It just might be the difference between, you gained 8% of muscle over this stretch of period of time and instead now you gain 7% or something. Like it's not the difference between 8% and no percent. And you'll still have some of these people who push that whole anabolic window and they make fun of people now for who still believe that. And it's like you were a huge voice in proposing that. It's like I read your book, and your book you said do this, and now you make fun of people for having that view, the very view that you had and you finger wagon. It's just like I understand change your mind because now new evidence came up and you changed your mind. I get it. And again, especially if you're a legitimate scientist, you're a legitimate researcher, it's like, yeah, change your mind when you get new evidence. And that's what Colin talks about. It's like new information, and I appreciate that. I love that. I told you guys that before. Like, that is why I like Colin Cowherd out of anyone else. He is my favorite sports commentator out there. But I will always take issue when someone is trying to be like, I can't believe there's people out there with this view. And it's like, it's the view that you had. It's the view that you had a month ago. Like, that's what kind of, it's a pet peeve of mine. It triggers me, man. I'm triggered. I'm a snowflake. It triggers me because I'm just like, wait a second. And that's why I said I'll give it this year, and then next year I'm not going to keep doing that because, okay, you changed your mind. That's fine. I don't think you have to now do it. You don't have to, give the preface every single time you now change your mind. Be like, well, I believed this before and now I don't. It's like, okay, you don't have to say that every single time. You don't. And there's plenty of things that I've changed my mind about. And it's like, I acknowledge it. I reference it. And I probably reference it longer than I should because I'm so hyper aware of all the things that I'm saying to you right now. But then eventually you let it go and then you just move on, right? And that's totally fair. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna now downplay Caleb's need to improve accuracy because he does. He absolutely does. I'm not gonna compare this to the NBA or the, college basketball changing, or use a reference point of, who's led completion percentage and all of them winning the Super Bowls. I mean, like that's always kind of a ridiculous statistic because you can do that essentially with anything. You know how many times the leader in touchdown passes wins the Super Bowl? Not a lot. Okay, right. Most teams, the guy who has the best running back, who leads the NFL in rushing yards, doesn't win the Super Bowl. The MVP, right, notoriously does not win the Super Bowl, right? The team with the best offense notoriously doesn't always win the Super Bowl. The team with the best defense doesn't always win the Super Bowl. Like, we can do that. The guy who has the team that has the best wide receiver, the best defensive end, the best corners, like it consistently, they don't win. And I made that argument when Colin made a list like this before, where he did it with like, I think it was with like pass rushers or whatever. And I said, listen, you can't do that because you could do this with receivers, running backs, because Colin had done that in the past, where he talked about like the highest paid quarterbacks or the best running backs or the best wide receivers. And he went, and it's something that he's done before. It's a way that he views things. And when he brought that to my attention once upon a time, when I saw the pattern of it, I was like, well, wait a second. We can say this now about essentially every single position, right? The highest paid quarterback, the highest paid wide receivers, the most productive quarterbacks, the most productive wide receivers, the most productive running backs, the most productive pass rushers. Yeah, majority of them do not win Super Bowl, right? Like, unless you put them all together at the same time, but it's like, yeah, they don't do that. And so like you could do the same thing then about completion percentage, passer rating, like, it just doesn't, I mean, look at the quarterbacks in 2024 who led touchdowns. Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, Sam Darnold, Bo Nix, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes is 9th. So the top 8 in touchdown passes didn't even make the Super Bowl, okay? Top 2 in touchdown passes, top 7 quarterbacks in 23 leading in touchdown passes didn't win the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes won the Super Bowl. He was 8th with 27. Dak had 36. Jordan Love had 32. Brock Purdy 31. Gobb 30. We're going to say touchdown passes aren't important now too. You know what I'm saying? So we do just have to be a little careful with some of these blanket statements about various stats. Like I always say, stats have to be put in context. You cannot just make some bottom line statement of this guy has a 65% completion percentage, this guy has a 67% completion percentage, therefore this other guy is better. It's just like there's so many other factors at play. Just like how you can't just make this bottom line statement of, well, the team that has the best running back 9 out of 10 times doesn't win the Super Bowl. It's just like it all depends on the structure of the team. It all depends on, the structure of the offense, the defense, the coaching staff, the quarterback. Like there's just so many factors involved. And as successful of a season that Caleb Williams is having right now, and enjoying the ride, enjoying the growth and the production and the improvements, it's still okay to acknowledge that there's still some issues there. Nothing can ever just be unconditional universal praise or hate, right? Like I'm such a firm believer in no matter the situation, no matter the game is talking about the positive and the negative. And it's actually one of the biggest issues that people struggle with sometimes. Like, I'll do a post-game clip or, talk about a game on Monday or Tuesday and be like, oh, that was a great win. Caleb made some great throws, but he made a couple really bad decisions. And then sometimes people like, oh, you just want perfection. And it's like, no, it's just acknowledge. Like, what do you think they talk about in coaching? What do you think they talk about in the meetings and when they're going over film and discussing? They're not like, oh, it doesn't matter. You did enough good things. Let's not worry about any of the bad things. Like, that's just how you are. Like, that's how I was coached. That's how I would coach other people. Like, that's just the way it works. That's why I always like, the best example of that is turnover-worthy plays. If you threw a couple bad balls that easily could have been intercepted, but they weren't. If you think for a second that a coach isn't going to talk to you about that and be like, we need to have a discussion about this. We almost lost the game because of this throw, because of this decision. You're out of your mind. A coach is not like, no, it doesn't matter, bud. We won. Don't worry. You threw 3 touchdowns. That's good enough. I don't care about that. The fact that you should have thrown a pick 6, but it was just dropped, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that you just threw a bad ball to the wrong guy at the wrong time in a moment that could have absolutely crushed our ability to win this game. We won. You threw for 3 touchdowns and 237 yards and a 63% completion percentage and a passer rating of 101. You're good. Does nothing else matters. Take the week off. It's not how it works. It's not how it works, and people are afraid. I do find that people are afraid to say positive and people are afraid to say negative. It's like they try to figure out what other people want to hear in that moment of time. And I'm just like, I'd rather just talk about it all in any moment of time. It's happening right now with a few random Broncos fans with me, because it's like I've been super pro Denver Broncos and have defended them a lot. Now, some guys like randomly commented recently because I defended the Kansas City Chiefs, and I said something about, Colin had the Broncos listed at second, and I was like, a great win against the Chiefs, yada, yada, yada. I was like, I don't know if I'm, necessarily prepared to put them at 2 right now. And this guy commented today where he's just like, it's a shame. I thought this was a Broncos channel. Anyone know other channels that I can watch? And it's just like he doesn't want to watch me because I don't just say Broncos is the best team. They're the best. They're the best. They're winning the Super Bowl. Von Nix is perfect. Sean Payton is perfect. This defense is perfect. This offense is perfect. No one could stop them. They're winning every single game. And it's just like, like what? Like, it is something that I learned pretty early on in this, that people want uniformity. They want you to just sit here and just say, Caleb Williams has been the best quarterback in the NFL right now. The Chicago Bears have been absolutely amazing. They are winning the division. They are winning the NFC. And if they get to the Super Bowl, they are going to win the Super Bowl. In fact, I'm so sorry. They are going to go to the Super Bowl. They are going to win the Super Bowl. Caleb Williams is the MVP. He is clearly a top 2 quarterback in the end. I'm so sorry. He is the number 1 quarterback in the NFL. Ben Johnson is the greatest coach ever. This defense is getting better and better and better every single week. How dare us ever talk about any of the other teams that they've played and the wins that they've accomplished? We're not allowed to talk about that. It's only the record, only the wins, nothing else. I'm so sorry. Let's go. And I won't do it. It's okay to just have the full conversation. We were having the conversation yesterday about, who the Bears beat and whatnot. And it's like people take that conversation too far to the extreme. It's okay to have that conversation. It's okay to acknowledge, yeah, they beat the Raiders. They beat, we could say that about every team, and it's like, yes, but then that's why you have to talk about the quality of play, and other teams, potentially deserve a better benefit of the doubt. Like, if you're talking about it in terms of maybe not exactly this year, but if it's like the Chiefs or the Bills or the Eagle, teams that have a deeper track record, it's like, yeah, they get a little bit more wiggle room. They get a little bit more benefit of the doubt. They've earned that. That's what happens when you get to conference championship games and Super Bowls and win Super Bowls. Like, you get that. Now, you don't live off of that. I'm a firm believer in you don't live in that past reputation either, which I pushed back a ton on the Kansas City Chiefs last year. Everyone just kept saying they're back-to-back Super Bowl champions. It's like, that's great, but that's not exactly this year. But you don't also just completely throw it out and make it just not even remotely an aspect either. Like, again, it all depends on the quality of play. But I fear that sometimes when people hear certain things like nuance, when you're talking about like, yeah, well, they did struggle to beat the Giants and like they needed a last-minute field goal to beat the Raiders, that people then hear that and they're automatically hearing people saying the Bears are terrible. They're not good. They beat no one good. They're not that good. They're not that good. They're not that good. And it's like, that's not the conversation. That's not the conversation. And I actually just heard a clip from Chris Long, who was literally winning Super Bowls with the Patriots and the Eagles. And he won with the Patriots and then won with the Eagles. So he was already with Tom Brady. He was already with Bill Belichick. He knew what greatness looked like. And he even admitted, as an actual veteran and being on the field now with the Philadelphia Goals when they were winning, when they ended up winning the Super Bowl, they said like it wasn't until late in the season that they were like, are we a good team? Like, he didn't know because someone asked a question on his podcast, how do you know when you're good and how do you know when you're cooked? And he talked about how when you're younger, he's like, you don't really know. You don't really have that frame of reference. You just don't know until you look towards the coaching staff, you look towards the veterans, you see how they're reacting, how they're acting, if you have a chance to, because when you're young, you just don't know. And it's funny because I've told other fan bases, like Seattle Seahawks fan bases recently, where I'm just like, this team is still trying to build that confidence to understand who they are. And some fans like, no, they know exactly who they are. And it's just like, that's not how it works. It's not how this works, okay? Patrick Mahomes individually knows who he is, and yet he still can waver a little bit. It's human nature. But certainly the team, certainly when you got 23-year-olds and 30-year-olds, like you got coaches, like it's all different. And that is what this team is also going through. I guarantee you got some guys that think they're ready to win it all. Let's go. And you got other guys, more experienced veterans who are like, all right, I'm definitely pumped up. We're definitely moving in the right direction, but like, we got to be smart here. They're not saying that to everyone. They're smart enough to not, pull down any of the young guys, but, they're still like recognizing I've been around the league long enough to understand that like some of these games are, we want to put them away earlier. We want to be a little bit more in control. Like, let's see what happens when we face this team and that team and this team. Like, just the way it works. And that's why Matt Hasselbeck said it. That's why, multiple Super Bowl winner Chris Long said it. Like, that's the way these things work. Chris Long was on 2 different Super Bowl winning teams, right? And like, that's what he was sharing, where he was just like, yeah, you don't, it takes some time. You don't always know. And he knew what it was like to be on 2 great teams with Tom Brady and Bill Bitch. Okay, like, what are we talking about here? I'm pretty sure it was the comeback team. I think it was the year that he won the Super Bowl. It was the comeback win against the Atlanta Falcons. So he knows either that year or the year that the interception won Russ. Either way, Super Bowl winner, and with Tom Brady and Bill Bitch. It's okay to roll around in the weeds here with some of these conversations. It's not gonna hurt you. I promise you. There's no ticks down there. It's all good. I promise you. Like, you can have these conversations and not have it, burn you in any way. But I think it's important to continue to have those conversations, because then you just get a clearer picture. And it's also okay to reserve your opinion. You don't have to have such a strong formed opinion in this immediate moment. That's how you get takes like Colin had earlier this year of saying, this isn't going to work. I mean, he was saying that in week 1, 2, 3, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work with Caleb and Ben. This isn't going to work. And now he's like, hi guys, how dare anyone question whether or not this is going to work? And it's because people need to have such tight, uniform, rooted opinions right now. I need to know, is Caleb Williams going to be the best quarterback ever? Yes or no? It's September 18th. I need to have this lockdown right now. And it's like, whoa, I don't know if we do. Like, let's just chill. Let's just chill in either direction. In either direction. Whether we're talking about an individual quarterback's performance, whether we're talking about their ability to improve their accuracy, whether we're talking about the quality of a team, how good are they? How average are they? Are they overinflated? Are they underinflated? Like, someone asked me when I was talking about this in this type of video that I made a couple days ago, or whenever it was about the Bears and who they beat, and someone said, are you making the same argument about the Patriots? And I was like, you technically could, there and that argument had been made, but but it's just like, why do you not lead that argument as frontward facing? One, Drake May has been exceptional, like truly exceptional, right? You have the established track record of Mike Rebell and Josh McDaniels, coaches that have been around once or twice, Super Bowl winners, as well as beating the Buffalo Bills, beating the Bucks, not having a negative, point differential, like so it's just, but you can still make some of the arguments of like, well, who have you beat, this, that? Like, it's not all or nothing. It's not all or nothing. It's not like I have to look at it through this lens or I have to look at it through that lens. And if I look at it through this lens for this team, it automatically means I have to apply the exact formula for every single team. Like, it always depends. It always depends. And it's not personal. That's what I see fans do a lot. They think it's unique to their own team. Oh, people always do this with the Bears. Always do it to the Eagles. Oh, they always do it with the Chiefs. And it's like, I interact with enough fan bases where I'm confident to say that every single fan base feels that everyone else is out to get them. Every fan base feels that way. Every fan, you know what? Some fan bases have a better argument than others. without a doubt. I'm telling you right now, the media desperately wants the Chicago Bears to be great. Desperately. We went through this last year. It is such a massive media. Colin has talked about that with Peter Schrager. Like, it is such a massive media with just endless amounts of money that the Chicago Bears being a great team, winning games, getting to the playoffs, Caleb Williams being a superstar, Ben Johnson being the next Andy Reid, Caleb Williams being the next Patrick Mahomes. The NFL would want nothing more than that. A new version of the Kansas City Chiefs, but in Chicago, not a small market in Kansas City. Are you kidding me? It's through the roof. It's absolutely through the roof in a massive city in Chicago. They want it more than anything because there's just an endless amount of money to be made. So I promise you, they're not out to get Chicago. They are not out to get Chicago. They are not. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears? How do you feel about the conversation? We listen, we can talk about the accuracy issues and stuff like that, but like, how do you feel, I guess, a little bit about what Colin was saying about the importance of completion percentage now, as well as just the conversation surrounding this team and Caleb, of course, specifically? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, so you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.